forbidden and banned, the bane of bureaucrats, violating terms of service on crybaby social media platforms, exposing mainstream media's weapons of mass distraction, firing cannonballs of common sense into the walls of corruption, and dropping truth bombs on tyranny. It's Liberty Now. Kia ora and hello. Thank you for tuning in. This is John Verd with Liberty Now On Air, a weekly broadcast/podcast on 96.9 Plains FM in Christchurch. Thank you for stopping by. Today, we're going to talk about another humanitarian issue, the border crisis in the U.S. Now, this is happening all over the world today, but we're going to zoom in on the crisis at the southern border of the U.S. I'll introduce you to Johnny Vogt, who works as an interpreter for the Department of Health and Human Services, among other agencies. We'll get his take on what's going on there, and I want to talk about the casualties of this crisis that aren't being discussed on the corporate media. Hello, Johnny.
Hi, John. How's it going over there on the other side of the planet?
Really good. I want to just introduce you to the audience who can't see you on screen right now if they're listening. This is my good friend Johnny Vogt. He's over in Seattle, Washington, and he works for...
Well, I work for different agencies, but mainly for the Justice Departments and also for DSHS.
DSHS, yes. Tell me a little bit about your work, Johnny. What sort of work do you do?
Basically, I'm an interpreter for different languages, and I do get involved in different situations in legal situations in courts, medical situations in hospitals, and also immigration, of course, because they do need interpreters for many different languages over there. Right.
You've been working with the immigration process at least a couple administrations, right? Prior to like during the Obama administration, Trump administration, and now the Biden administration.
Oh, yes. Basically since 2008.
Okay. And have you seen a difference in the immigration process, how it's been handled?
Yes. The last administration, we saw, they tighten up a little bit. They followed the rules in the books.
Yep.
A little bit closer. They did this following all the rules that they were supposed to be followed, but the interpretation of the rules goes with the people that are in charge. So they change their interpretation as they please.
Right. Have you seen a difference in the number of immigrants coming into the country in the last, several months since Biden's been here in office?
Oh, by the thousands.
By the thousands.
Thousands of thousands.
More than the previous rate that we had seen before.
Oh yeah. Because we reached the point. We reached the point right now that it's an overflow. The facilities that are available at the border, they can't handle this. So they are letting people go without even a court date.
Right. Now, I had heard about this. I think the first time I heard about this was back during the Obama administration, and we were getting floods of illegal immigrants coming into the country, let alone the legal ones who were stopped at the border and processed. And you were part of the legal process yourself, right, Johnny?
My part on this process is at when they reach the courts, or when they have any kind of medical problems. That's then it's when I get involved. I don't participate in the scheduling or managing of that kind of personnel to going to one place or the other. So I don't deal with that.
Right.
My participation is when they reach the courthouses, or sometimes when they're in prison, or they need medical assistance, and they are at the hospitals or clinics. That's when I get involved.
Right. So I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but I had been hearing, that again during the Obama administration that we were getting a lot of illegal immigrants coming into the country, and many of them were not being processed. They weren't given court dates, or they were given a court date, 3, 4 years down the track, and then given a bus ticket and a card with, $1,000 loaded on it, and said, here you go, and just released into the country. Can you verify if that indeed has been happening?
Well, when they get here, most of the immigrants, when they get at the border, they just turn themselves in,
Right,
because the policy right now is if you come to the border, through Mexico, basically, and they come from everywhere in the world. They come from Africa, they come from Central America, they come from South America, they come from the Middle East, they come all over from all over. So the end point is the Mexican American border. Some of them they just try to go across the border without contact with the border patrol or any immigration, and they receive help from coyotes on both sides of the border in
right.
Mexico, and
Coyotes, aka
also,
smugglers.
yeah, human smugglers. So
Yeah,
there, and those smugglers, they have a network that goes all over the world. So you have people in Africa connected to people in South America, in Brazil, Colombia, Panama, Central America, Mexico, because the Mexican cartels, they control the access to the border.
right.
Nobody goes through the border without the cartels allowing them. So they get a cut of of the money that is paying for this trip.
Right. And you mentioned that there are people coming from all over the world, from Africa, the Middle East, other countries, and they know that that's probably because they know that it's an easy route to get through, that there's pretty lenient immigration policy right now. And I think anybody that knows about the crisis that's going on would be sympathetic to their plight. Nobody wants to see anyone suffer. But how is it that it's simultaneously happening in all these places? Is there a single crisis that's causing this, or are we seeing that they're being actually encouraged? They're being incentivized with money and with propaganda. What would you see as the big driving force?
Well, it's a ongoing crisis, and this is more and more looks like a fabricated crisis.
Right.
You have a magnet on our side,
Yeah.
and on the other side, you have several reasons pushing these people away from their countries. The magnet is, of course, a better life, better wages, a society that is more organized, is cleaner. You have medical assistance. You have assistance from the government if you are a refugee, and even if you are in the country illegally, you can have access to a lot of benefits.
Right. Now,
So on the other side, the reason they're pushed, out of their countries is because the economy is not that good, because they have no jobs, because they crime, violence, that kind of a situation. Unfortunately, when immigrants come here, it's hard to tell which one is which. If the person arriving is really a good person that is being, was tortured, was kidnapped, or
right.
suffered some kind of violence, or is just coming here for economic reasons, or maybe is a terrorist, maybe is a bad guy too. It's hard to tell
Right.
if you don't check them out.
Right. And that's the crux of the problem is if we're not able to process them and determine, who they are, and vet them before letting them into the country, then we obviously are facing a crisis internally in the country too. It's going to precipitate even greater crises after they arrive. Where of course, Donald Trump was lambasted in the media for saying that they had MS-13 gang members and criminals, rapists, and child abusers coming across the border. But we keep seeing the headlines of these people who have come across illegally repeatedly. Either they're not sent back to their home country and given into the authorities in their own country, or they are sent back and then cross the border again. People like that obviously are not refugees, they're just criminals. And I think it's within a country's right to keep out the bad actors.
It is a revolving door.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that are kicked out, deported, after a few months, they're back.
Right. And how do we know who's a refugee versus somebody who's just looking for, economic reasons? There's a big difference.
Yeah, the refugee status is a very narrow set of rules that the immigrant should be able to prove. So if you have any kind of persecution because of political view that you have in your country, or if you are persecuted because of religious reasons,
right?
You don't have a lot of options. So economic reason is not an excuse for ask for asylum or refugee status.
Right.
But a lot of people, they take advantage of this. So when they get to the border, they are running away from a bad economy in their country. And it doesn't give them the benefit of a refugee because it's an economic reason. But they ask for for asylum anyway, and because of the backlog, they are allowed to stay in the country for many years.
Right.
And during those years, they start having babies, they start marrying, and practically it's a license to stay.
That's exactly it. So we see a large number, probably, I don't know what percentage, but I would say the vast majority are not refugees. But it seems to me, and maybe you'd agree, that they're all being treated as refugees.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. It is. The last administration, what Trump tried to do is to keep everybody out of, American soil. If they want to apply, okay, so you can do everything from Mexico. Oh, I came from Brazil, or I came from Argentina. Argentina is going down the tubes the same way Venezuela because they made their choices, and they're starting to pay the price for their choices.
Namely, like socialism, would you say socialist policies and nationalization of industries?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're following the Bolivarian Venezuelan model.
Yeah. I mean,
doing exactly the same thing.
How do they not learn from history? I mean, we've seen this model repeatedly, since the Bolshevik Revolution all over the world, throughout history, and it's never worked.
But if you brainwash people in schools and you separate them from the real information from the reality or the facts, and you start, pushing your agenda, your ideology, and promising this, promising that, saying that they're going to have heaven on earth. The media is blocking all the information, so they have no access, even with the internet. So there is a lot of fake news.
It's gotten out of hand, and I would point any listeners who haven't seen my previous podcasts or episodes yet, go check out episode number 11, the weapons of mass distraction. If you need proof that the mainstream media lies and they have a single narrative that they want to push. But yes, it is really hard to convince the voting public, the actual citizens in a country, what the real crisis is. if it's so hard to get the truth to them when their supposed trusted sources of information, namely the corporate media, are pushing a completely different narrative. And this gets into the question a little bit of, why would it be in anybody's interest to try to create a humanitarian crisis like this, to flood the country with illegal immigrants? If you're just tuning in, this is John Verd on Liberty Now on air on 96.9 Plains FM in Christchurch. Please be sure to subscribe on iTunes at Liberty Now on air. You can also get the links, files, and show notes for this episode at libertynow.com. There is a plan, an actual plan called the Cloward and Piven plan, which is one way in trying to overwhelm the welfare system. And Johnny, I think you're probably seeing this firsthand, where we can't even process people fast enough as they come into the border. We can't pay for everybody's health care and accommodations. And we're trying to put people that are not even citizens into our welfare system. We're already having enough trouble, with taxpayer dollars to pay for the current people on the welfare system. And the Cloward and Piven plan does exactly that. It intends to overwhelm the welfare system, to create such a crisis that it crashes the economy and then allows the people with the new solution to come in with their new socialist government. It looks pretty clear that that's what's happening.
Yes, and this is just, a one step on the ladder to their goals. The goal is further ahead. You have to follow the money.
Yes.
Follow the strategies. Exactly, and it's by design. Look, if you look at the job market, okay, you have a number of jobs available for the population. If you increase the number of people searching for job, for any kind of wage, what happened? The wages go down.
Right.
So follow the money.
Right. So you're basically recreating the same third world conditions now in Western nations that exist before when, Clinton signed NAFTA and sent American labor overseas to China, all of our manufacturing jobs going down to Mexico and China primarily, and also outsourcing to India. And of course, corporations love that. I mean, they're beholden to their stockholders, their shareholders, and the owners. A corporation, people have to realize, is a soulless entity. It has no personal responsibility. You can try to point the finger at the CEO, but they'll just point to the shareholders. I mean, there's no one person responsible. And I'm not against capitalism by any means. I support the rule of law and antitrust law and anti-monopoly laws that we used to have, but have been just run over roughshod or eliminated now. A lot of people looked to Clinton and others, primarily the Democrats, as, such a hero and for the people. But in reality, passed these laws that basically got rid of our domestic economy. We had a booming economy. Trump was trying to put America back first again and, have reasonable trade deals and tariffs, like we used to have, to try to restore the economy. And indeed, the economy was booming all through the Trump administration.
Yep.
And we're seeing it tank again under another Democrat. People can't get it through their heads, I think. Why would anybody want to, crash the economy? It's the same reason that corporations would want to send all their labor to another country, because if they can, increase the bottom line, cut down on their production costs, that they don't care what it does to the local economy.
Well, think about this. There is no coincidence. Every time that the unemployment goes down to a level that the wages start to raise, what happened? This is not by accident. This is by design. What happened? They opened the gates.
Right. And this is what
every
exactly.
time the economy is booming.
Right. Right. And so this is sort of what I was trying to lead to is I think it is by design, that the borders are being open. And I mean, in fact, I'm going to go back and pull up the quote from Biden himself said, you need to surge the border. Okay, I'm jumping in here after the interview with that very clip from Mr. Biden himself. I'm going to play a couple clips for you here because I like to back up what I say. This is first a YouTube clip from ABC News, and then we'll play commentary from Representative McCarthy at the White House, uploaded from Forbes Breaking News. Let's take a listen to both of these.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
In the first Democratic primary debate, Biden says when he's president, illegal immigrants should immediately, this is quote, immediately surge to the border. I could play the video if you want. Okay, you trust me? All right. I'll send it to you. So, if I may ask a question back. If you are that Honduras family and you're reading this and the person running for president said, you should immediately surge to the border, he wins the presidency, and what's the first thing he does? He says, I'm going to make 11 million illegal immigrants citizens. The Democrats put on the floor today before and changes the Dreamers bill to not that you had to be here before, but just by January, that he removes remaining in Mexico policy. He removes the PACER policy. He stops the building of the wall. He questions whether to keep Title 42. That's why you put your whole family together and make this trek. Because you just listened to what President Biden said. No law has changed by moving of Congress. This entire crisis is created simply by Joe Biden's actions and words.
On the one hand, he's telling the American public, we're doing our best to secure the borders, but he's telling a very different story. In fact, we're even getting stories about like ads and campaigns outside of the country in Spanish language advertisements saying, come on up to the U.S. border, and these are being funded by globalists. They're spending millions of dollars.
That is
creating this crisis.
That is a lot of people, a lot of organizations making money.
Right. There is money to be made.
Yes, there is a lot of people and a lot of organizations making a lot of money. There is a business. Some people, they rent the kids to help grown-ups to go across the border, because if you come to the border by yourself, it's hard for you to go across.
Okay, I know where to break in again here. In the time we have left, I want to get to talking about the real victims here, the children who had no choice being put in this danger, the horrible conditions that they go through waiting to get in, and many separated from their parents, and many of these become vulnerable to all kinds of abuse. I want to play a report by Greg Reese on Band.video with actor Jim Caviezel exposing the practice of adrenochroming and child sex trafficking and worse.
If you were to watch Schindler's List, you would say, boy, that was terrible. I wish I was around that. Maybe I could have done something. But you can do something now, because they're pulling kids out of the darkest recesses of hell right now, in dumbs and all kinds of places. The adrenochroming of children.
Actor Jim Caviezel is being ridiculed and defamed in the mainstream news for speaking out against child trafficking. While promoting his new film, Sound of Freedom, based on the true story of former U.S. government agent Tim Ballard, who quit his job to devote his life to rescuing children from global sex traffickers, Jim Caviezel described what adrenochrome is.
Essentially, you have adrenaline in your body. I'll just simplify it. And when you are scared, you produce adrenaline. If you're an athlete, you get in the fourth quarter, you have adrenaline that comes out of you. If a child knows he's going to die, his body will secrete this adrenaline, and they have a lot of terms that they use.
The Mockingbird media responded, by firing a chorus of headlines into the brainwashed minds of the public, all to the tune of adrenochrome and the consumption of children is a dangerous right-wing lie. But it isn't. Millions of people waking up from the generational sleepy lie of pop culture are seeing the ugly truth, seeing the millions of babies aborted each year, sold for fetal body parts, seeing old women rub aborted fetal tissue into their skin to appear younger, and seeing official science comparing young blood to the fountain of youth. It doesn't matter how many times the lying fake news media decries QAnon, conspiracy theorists, or right-wingers. Millions are now seeing what they have been busy hiding: the trafficking of children, slavery. Caviezel warned that the film may never be seen because there are very famous people in Hollywood involved in child trafficking.
And once they see the ships that they transport the children in and all of this stuff, well, there's no other film like this. Our industry can't make this film right now because of a lot of people that are involved in it all over the world that are in this. And many of these people are very famous.
He even mentioned DUMBs.
Because they're pulling kids out of the darkest recesses of hell right now, in DUMBs and all kinds of places.
Deep underground military bases, which we were warned about in 1995 by former government engineer turned whistleblower Phil Schneider. People have always been telling us this ugly truth. Alex Jones and David Icke, William Cooper, Manly P. Hall, all the way back to Aristotle. And now it's all coming out into the open. The apocalypse, the revealing of what was once hidden. Like Plato's allegory of the cave, there are millions who keep themselves ignorantly buried in the mainstream lie. But millions of us are awakening to the evil truth, and we demand justice.
And these people that do it, there'll be no mercy for them.
For Infowars.com, this is Greg Reese.
I really thank you so much, Johnny. I'm going to wrap this up. Really appreciate your time and your insight as an insider into some of what's happening over there. And wish you the very best, my friend.
You too. You getting a larger audience every day.
Well, thanks to you for getting the word out.
Always, my friend. Stay safe.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Johnny.